this morning. I'm privileged to be your Master of Ceremonies. On behalf of Africa Dyslexia Organization, we wish to welcome each and every one of you to our stakeholders forum. We are probably wondering why there's a need for us to meet and talk about something as crucial as dyslexia. The reason is very simple. Our educational system, one way or the other, hasn't given room for persons with dyslexia to be given extra care and attention, because in most cases they have considered it as a very serious disability that cannot be helped. But the most important thing is that if you notice a person with dyslexia and you offer help, they can be great. So this morning we've gathered here to brainstorm, to discuss and look at ways by which we can inculcate all of these things that we'll come up with here into our educational system.
Early, and I know it's very early in the morning, and breakfast and all that, so we're making preparation, and if you're really needing something, you will be able to get something to eat while the program also continue. But I'm very happy to be here today. I just want to also correct something. This event is put together by Dyslexia Ghana, Africa Dyslexia Organization, and heavily supported by RIAN International School. So I don't want to take the credit alone. And of course, we also have a wonderful partnership with an organization from the USA, and we are very fortunate to have them here spending 1 week with us. Noticeability, and we have Dean and Buddy here. Thank you so much. So I started Africa Dyslexia Organization a little under 3 years ago. And why did I do that? You heard in my profile, I started reading and writing at the age of 17. And so imagine a teenage who started reading and writing at the age of 17. What happened to me? And we're talking about dyslexia today, but it will shock you to know that I just got to know about dyslexia like 6 years ago. So that means for me, I never had any intervention. I just would say bullied my way through school, sometimes copying. It's not a good thing. Even when you open the book, I can't copy. That's how severe my dyslexia is. But the day I found out that I'm dyslexic, I was, one, very happy. At the same time, I was very sad. Because one question I asked myself is, how many people like me in the same position didn't get the opportunity to realize their dreams? Because I wasn't the only one who was carrying the class all the time. We were a lot. And I was changing school all the time, so anytime I meet some of them. Okay, but when you cast your mind back and you're trying to find where are they, there are very few of them who kind of still going through life, somehow fell out. But I look at myself and I see that I'm not special than them, right? And they can even be better than me. But it's because our system don't know about these things. We just call them in our local language, mabon. You're lazy, you are uneducable, you can never amount to anything, and they lose hope on life. So for me, that was the interest that brought the passion in me that we need to start Africa Dyslexia Organization. When I asked my own dad, who is a teacher, who have been in education for 40 years, that, do you know about dyslexia and related learning disabilities? And he said, no. And he's a very good teacher too. So at that moment, I would go, the Ministry of Education, the GES, the Greater Accra region of the GES, I'll go and stand there and be asking teachers, do you know about dyslexia? That was my form of research. And the moment I got to 50, and I had only about 6 people who were saying yes, I was like, we need to start something. We need to raise awareness, and who better do that than use my story to start African Dyslexia Organization. And it's this. And it's the same story for Madame Joy Thomas, the founder of Dyslexia Ghana. She's severe dyslexic, and for the past 20 years, she's been raising awareness and giving learning interventions here in Ghana. But this is how our collaboration works. She does more of the intervention, the assessments. I'm young, so what I do is I use the media.
Wow, is that what you're saying?
And no, I'm young, I'm millennial. I'm millennial, so I use media, a lot of advocacy, talk, right? When she does the action, the more impactful work by supporting the children how to read and write and really be better to empower themselves. So that's how our collaboration comes in together, and we've been working together since I started African Dyslexia Organization. Why the reason for this forum? We've been doing online awareness training, going to the ministries of education, but we've never gathered like this. So we thought that when Dean said, look, I have a program that I want to bring to Ghana, I was like, this is a fantastic opportunity then. Bring everyone together, bring decision makers together. So it was more of the head of schools, owners of schools, the principals, and special educators, people in the psychology field, like come together with Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, the GES. Come together, let's listen and learn something and see how we can position Ghana when it comes to inclusivity. And that's why we are having this gathering. So if next year we meet here again, we are going to see the schools that came. What are the steps you have taken from what you're going to learn today? Because there are a lot of wonderful speakers. We have Ochiame Kwame here, who is a dyslexic. We have Dr. Fatima here, whose father is dyslexic. The son is dyslexic. Professor Hayford is here, and he's going to share a lot about when it comes into terms of policies that they are working on that is going to support. But if you're a private school, what I want to tell you is, do not wait that you're waiting on GES or the Ministry of Education to implement something. You have opportunity to make decisions on your own. Start by training your teachers to have knowledge and expertise in teaching diverse learners. This is my encouragement to you. It would be wonderful if every school in Ghana have at least 2 teachers who teach dyslexic kids, who are able to have assessments or screening done in their own schools. Then you will have the empathy for that child who is not able to read and write and stop beating us. We, Africa Dyslexia Organization, we are here to support you. You can be part of our membership and you get access to trainings, resources. If you want us to come to your school to help you, set up a department, we will do. Listen, it will cost you a little today, but the benefits it will give you in the future, you can't even put a price on it. This is a serious case. A lot of people are falling out of the train just because we think they are good for nothing. Would you have believed if I told you that when I was 17 I couldn't read and write, or I started picking words when I was 17, and I'm standing in front of you today? I'm feeling nervous. However, I'm also proud that today, that story from yesterday can bring people together to learn something new. So please today get your notepad ready, ask questions, engage, and let's have fun. Thank you very much.
You just knocked the ball out of the park, as we say. Okay. Dyslexia Ghana, Africa Dyslexia Association, the sponsors of this event, I thank you. Most importantly, I want to say congratulations to Team Morocco. Okay, big hope for Team Africa on Wednesday. This is who we are rooting for. So, this is an honor for me to be here. I am here with my son, Bodhi Bragonnier, who is absolutely integral to what I have created as an organization and the reason I am here with you. You will hear more from him later during the question and answer panel. I really can't tell a better story than Rosalind. I really can't. I'm so humbled by your story of success that mine looks incidental by comparison. Really. And this is the reason. Your ability to convey the message that you just did is the reason why you have so many of us in the United States devoted to the work you're doing here in Ghana. And the fact that we have this ability to be here in Ghana, which I am incredibly excited about, is a direct result of who you are and what you've accomplished in 3 short years, but more importantly, the 17 years of struggle and the years since then. Unlike you, I did have the benefit of a diagnosis. And I assure you, I am much older than you. Much. And I'd like to point out the fact that I had a diagnosis when I was in about 3rd grade, about 6, 7, 8 years old, somewhere in there, and that I got the reading intervention, which has been proven through evidence, can easily allow a dyslexic person to learn how to read. I got that in the 1970s. This is an incredibly progressive agenda, and it is a result of the fact that my mother is a child developmental psychologist, and my father, now deceased, was a dyslexic. So we had this awareness, and as a result, we had the perfect environment to see my struggle, to get me the help that I needed. And many of us in the field of dyslexia, not me, but many of us will say that's all you need. All you need is early detection and early intervention as they go through the educational process is absolutely paramount to the person they will become.
Yes.
Because for me, diagnosed, reading intervention, I still felt stupid. I felt like the toy that came off of the assembly line broken. They had to pull me out, they had to put me in the garage, tinker me, try to reintroduce and hope that it worked. I was from the land of broken toys. The impact of believing this from a young age, day after day, and experiencing the failure and the ridicule from peers or sometimes teachers, started to degrade my sense of self-worth. It started to affect what I believed I could become in life. And it is for this reason that I believe the negative statistics that haunt people with dyslexia, the fact that 50% of incarcerated youth in the United States have dyslexia, or 60% of adolescents involved in drug and alcohol abuse in the United States have dyslexia, comes back to a lack of identification, a lack of reading remediation, but also the fact that they feel that they are useless. I married a beautiful dyslexic woman. She gave birth to our dyslexic purebred. A genetically perfected dyslexic right here. And I knew at that moment that I had a job to do. I was either going to sit back and watch the educational system in the United States, I'm not speaking about government, the educational system in the United States destroy my child's self-esteem, or I was going to do something about it. As our master MC just indicated, I went into hospitality industry. I had no business going into the hospitality industry. I was 23 years old and I could barely make a cup of coffee. And I decided to buy a restaurant. Why? Because I knew it required hard work, but that's what we dyslexics do.
Amen.
Yeah? After 5 years, I wound up selling it for a profit. Why? Because I had an advantage. And it was my dyslexia. Turns out the neuroscience of the dyslexic brain is now revealing that there are advantages that come with the same brain construction that makes learning how to read so difficult. Shouldn't be a surprise. Where the negative comes a positive, right?
Amen.
It's the way of the world, the way of nature. So I saw my son and I said, I have a responsibility to teach him what these advantages are so that he can feel good about himself while the school system makes him feel bad. We live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a little town next to Boston, the home of Harvard and MIT. And we know a lot of the professors, so I approached these schools and I said, I want to create a program that focuses on the top 4 professions for students for people with dyslexia: entrepreneurship, engineering, architecture, and the arts.
Good.
And I want to create these classes that can be implemented in schools around the world.
Amen.
Spoiler alert, around the world.
Amen.
Here
Amen.
to give it away to Ghana.
Give this
Thank you
man up.
to some very generous donors in America. We have our program ready to go in your school, absolutely for free, thanks to them. But what we are doing is we are teaching children with dyslexia what they're good at. We are teaching them through something called social emotional learning, which is how do you regulate yourself in group environments? How do you learn to negotiate? How can you become an active listener and resolve conflicts with others? And it turns out that the National Center of Longitudinal Studies and the National Longitudinal Transition Study, believe it or not, those are 2 things, show that the 2 ingredients necessary for success for people with learning differences: a sense of engagement and a sense of understanding from the adults in their life. So we are here to share a little tiny contribution that we have made, a little package that is easy to implement thanks to our partners at Dyslexia Ghana and Africa Dyslexia Association, to share with schools that are interested in supporting students with dyslexia, along with the 33 other countries that have utilized our program. What is my dream and how am I doing on time? I'm dyslexic, so I get extra time, but I won't take it. My dream is this. My son, as you will hear in the question and answer, is what I consider to be an empowered person with dyslexia. He is very aware of his struggles. He's also very proud of his strengths. I believe that we are at a crucial juncture, a crucial opportunity in Ghana and around the world. We know that 35% of people with dyslexia, let me put it differently, 35% of entrepreneurs have dyslexia. 35%. They say that 40% of self-made millionaires have dyslexia. Interesting, I'm not one of them, unfortunately. As the Mr. MC pointed out, there are incredible change agents that have affected the way our world operates who have dyslexia. So I ask you to consider this. When you hear Miss Rosalind speak this morning, she is an exception. She, as we say, thread the needle. She beat the odds. She is here today gathering all of you, these stakeholders, these leaders in the field. But for every one, Rosalind, there are arguably 10, 50, maybe even 100 who are unemployed, underemployed, incarcerated, addicted. What would our world look like if those individuals were empowered? I don't know about you, but we got a lot of problems in the United States. Dyslexics are problem solvers. They deserve to be solving our problems. We need them to solve our problems. So as I call him Mr. Enoch from the Ministry of Education, the director of private schools, he said to me in a Zoom, I hope I got his title right, he said during a Zoom, he said, Dean, it's very nice of you to come over and work with a handful of our students and a handful of our schools, but I have 3 million students. What about the 20% of them that are dyslexic? And I had to pause and I said, sir, with all due respect, I have to ask you. I have looked around the world for somebody to ask me that question. Why is it that you asked me that question and nobody else has? He said, because in Ghana, education is a privilege. I come from a country where people go, school. That makes me believe that in Ghana we have an opportunity to make monumental change when it comes to educating people with dyslexia.
Impact.
So I'm excited, if you can't tell. I mean, I'm American, so I'm loud anyway, but I'm really excited too, okay? I can't wait to see what comes of this. I can't wait for our, we've got a student workshop with some of the educators here today, tomorrow. I can't wait to see what happens. I can't wait to welcome any email that comes in to say, we want no disabilities programming at our school. We will take care of you like that. Easy. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me and for having Bodhi and for being invested in the dyslexic future of Ghana. I can't wait to see the rest of this program. Thank you so much.
Nana Asapal, the respected traditional ruler. I'm highly inspired to hear the story. This is my first time hearing about your story. Dean Bragonia, Executive Director of Disability USA, Professor Samuel Hayford, the Directors of Education present, heads of agency from the Ministry of Education, key stakeholders in the inclusive education space, parents of this special, very special group of persons, very highly gifted group of persons, and interested parties, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, I'm really excited to be here. At the outset, I want to bring you the warm compliments of Dr. Ausedijum, the Minister for Education, who would have loved to be here in person, because this matter that we are discussing today, the dyslexic education stakeholders forum, is one that is at his heart, and whatever platform that he gets, even if it has very little to do with inclusive education, he always has an occasion to bring that matter to the fore and to bring that awareness, and is advocating strongly so that as a society we come to terms with a special group of persons that we seem to be marginalizing. And I'm personally excited to be here, and I want to commend highly the organizers of this forum for organizing this. It's high time that we brought this matter to the fore for everyone to know. Usually when we talk about disabilities, we often lose sight of the mild to medium disabilities at all, and definitely lose out an opportunity for an intervention. But we also know that this particular matter has to do with just the way the brain is structured, and it's no fault of their making. And just an intervention will enhance their reading ability. It's just the ability to be able to decode, the phonics decoding, to be able to know that when I see this letter, this is how the sound must be, and the ability to be able to recognize words that you've read before. And so it's one issue that we all must first and foremost become aware of, and we must be patient with, and to be able to devise a robust system that will ensure early detection and diagnosis, and to ensure that individual education plan is put in place for these ones. If we're able to put in place the multisensory techniques and to be able to get them a structured literacy plan, all these interventions put together will be able to overcome the challenges that people with such a challenge often face. So as we have gathered here, though it is 1 in every 5 people, you might be surprised that if you're to go through the diagnostics, you might be having such a challenge. But because the severity of yours is different from those that are quite prevalent, we think that we are different from the rest. When you go to Boston, the name they give to those that have dyslexia, they call them the MIT syndrome. Because they believe that many people in MIT, the highly gifted ones, are those having dyslexia. And so when one has this condition in Ghana or in Africa, they must not be categorized or marginalized. They are rather some of the gifted people that the world can have. Can you imagine the Nansapa? Imagine the Colossus or Chami Pami, having dyslexia and having been able to overcome such a challenge. And so, and there are many such Nana and Sapaos, there are many such Ochami Pamis whose dreams may not be able to be realized because of the stigma, because we are not detecting and teachers are frustrated, parents are frustrated. We think that he should be able to learn the same way his siblings are learning. He should be able to learn the same way his mates are learning. But that is the mistake we'll be making. So with a strong collaboration from the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health, we are putting in place that system that will ensure early detection and ensure that we have a robust system in place, an education system that has a place for every child. We all have one learning disability or the other. They manifest just differently. And that is why we want to be able to raise this awareness. And for those of you who are already aware, Einstein was dyslexic.
Yes, he was.
And John F. Kennedy, the famous former president of the United States, also had this condition. Richard Branson had this condition, and it is believed that those that have this condition have high tendencies of becoming startup billionaires. And so if your child has one, count yourself blessed, and let's be supportive, and let's ensure where you can't really find support, contact us at the Ministry of Education. We have a fantastic special education unit and Ghana Education Service, and all the interventions are in place. We have strong collaborations with Professor Samuel Hayford, the expert in academia, University of Education, Winneba, and other institutions who are also supporting us put in place such an environment that will ensure that every child born Ghanaian, regardless of any learning challenge that they face, should be able to realize the full potential. And that is why we are here today, to join hands with all those that are advocating, to join hands with parents, to join hands with disability and academia and all stakeholders to raise awareness that we have some special group of people. And those ones are the gifted ones who should be integrated in every aspect of our education, and none must be left behind. When before FSHS came in, over 150,000 people were left behind every year, even after they had done DC and had fantastic grades to be able to continue. But many of those that were left behind were either girls or people who have disabilities or one form of learning disability or the other. Therefore, when we are promoting inclusive education and we are pursuing with a lot of commitment the SDG Goal 4, and in particular 4.2, to ensure inclusive, quality, and equitable education for all and promoting lifelong learning, we want to carry everyone along. And no one must be left behind, regardless of any special ability or disability they may have. So on this note, and with these few remarks, we want to assure you that the Ministry of Education, for that matter government, will continue to join hands with Noticeability and all stakeholders who have taken keen interest in persons with dyslexia and to ensure that we give them a bright future. I thank you very much and I wish you success.
And it also didn't help that he has a bit of ADD, attention deficit, as well. So he's restless, he's really restless, and struggling with school. I mean, school became a chore. So, but you know, he had filled all his milestones. He's a regular boy, extremely handsome. Sorry, I gush over myself. But I was very confusing for a mom, you know, and the more confusing part is all his other friends in his class can do all the things they want to do. And the challenge for me started when the school had to, okay, so I was going to pick him up from school one afternoon, and they said all the kids were playing, but he's ill. perfecting his ABCs. So I thought, well, he's 3 years old. Read, allow the child to play. And following that, that's when he came to the course who was a theory matter every morning, and helping me understand and appreciate and in fact learn more. Learn how to be a better mom for him, learn how to teach him, learn how to be his champion. It's a very confusing moment for a mom. It's your first child, you want your child to be the best, and he's struggling, and you're seeing how his confidence is so bruised. He was going to school, it's difficult. I had friends in his class, the kids are mean. Kids are really mean. For a 3-4-year-old call another child stupid, it's very deep. You want to go confront the other kid's parents, but you can't. So for me, that's when it started, and that's when I took it to the
Blame yourself.
Oh, yes, sure. What did I do wrong? Why is it me? Why does it have to happen to me? I'm good at everything. I'm pretty smart, I like to think. So why does it have to happen to me? Where do you even start from? Did I do something wrong in the beginning? Should I have done something? Should I have noticed it when it was one? But we did all the right things. And finding out. So of course I kept part of the game. It was part of me, the family as well.
Right. Mr. OK.
Yes.
I'd like us to go into your story and what the experience has been, what it's been since that time. How old were you? Did you ever get diagnosed? And how old were you when, you got a diagnosis? Well, I think
I was about 23 or 24,
okay.
Working at Whole Foods Market in New York. And my boss, yes, who had found me exciting, would give me, because he wanted to lift me from the floor, selling fruits, to managerial. Because every month, they used to do this thing called a mystery shop, where someone will come to the shop and the one who is nicest to that person gets $100 and get billed. I won it consistently for 5 months. So they were like, this is different. So they wanted to lift me to managerial and give me a bit more responsibility. Then they realized that I could not comprehend what was written, or I could not reproduce it under pressure. So then they pushed me to the psychology department, and then they diagnosed that, he has dyslexia. But growing up, growing up,
They took you to prayer camp.
yes. So my father was one of the very smart accountants that Nkrumah took to Italy to learn accountancy. That's how he used to call it. So he's a chartered accountant, and my mom was a teacher. But I grew up until about when I was 10 or 12. I couldn't read my ABCs. I used to say M-U-N-E-O-P for M-N-O-P. So they used to beat me. When going to school was like, immediately I heard the word school, I started producing cortisol in my system. And every day I had stomach aches because my mother, who was a teacher, had told her friend that meaning that all my child wants to do is play. So please, beat him for me. So at class 1, her name was Mrs. Boama. Mrs. Boama would hit me in the head. Wabong, wabong, wabong. Every time, you are dumb, you are dumb, you are dumb. So I am even crying. So class 2, class 3, they changed my school because my father, who didn't understand. So I would come home with the homework, and then my father would also beat him because he couldn't fathom why he's so smart. If you ask my father, what is 5,464 times 8? He'll tell you instantly. And he couldn't understand why his son was so down. So at a point, they had to ship me to my grandmother because both of them couldn't handle it. So they took me to my grandmother. My grandmother was uneducated. And so whenever I came back home with homework, my grandmother will come and stand in the middle of the house and scream, "Homework! Oh!" Meaning whoever can help should help. So there were some secondary students in the school in Kumasi who would come and then help me out. So I went through a lot. Then they took me to a school in Kumasi called Kings International, one of these experimental schools that are trying to teach children to acquire parrot learning. Immediately you get to the school, spell immediately, spell exacerbated. So they teach you to spell big words, and now your parents are happy. So they took me to that school, and in the morning they did something called dictation, and that was more gains in my head. And then I realized that I could not. It wasn't just about reading and learning. It was also about maths. I also had dyscalculia. So I couldn't multiply 2 times 2, 3. So I grew up depressed. I do not like to revisit the childish me because it's a completely broken up personality. So I went through it. When I finished my O-levels, I had 9s in everything. I had all 9s. My father looked at my results and cried. He was tearing up. But this is in '92 when hip-hop music had become the gem and everyone was catching the fever. So I went to a young man in my neighborhood called Lord Marcus, and Lord Marcus would use my interest in rap music to tease out my academic powers. So that's my story.
Yes, so as a professional, what has been your greatest frustration? Everything that's gone on, hopefully there's some medication that's going on. But what has been your greatest frustration?
I think it's taking too long for the light bulb to switch on, considering it's an age-old condition, if I may call it. I'm listening to my brother. Wow. It's amazing today we can sit on the stage and talk about this, but I'm telling you, this is not a stage matter. We made it, or how I made it through. Because you're literally, the red pen is in your name. You're just there. We'll feed you 3 times a day, but well, whenever your time comes, God will call you and then you go. I was in school, I was in all the privileged schools because fortunately, I came from an okay family. I don't have that story where we went to bed hungry or walked barefoot. No, I didn't. So I think it was really frustrating that I did Jack and Joe, Northridge, Lyceum, Martin and Porris, back to Northridge, Lyceum, back to Martin and Porris, everything, and it was still not working. So the father is thinking, what more can I give you? I'm giving you all the privileged education. Now, my sad story is that I could teach the students in the class to pass their exams.
There you go.
But then when it gets to mine, and still the teachers couldn't recognize it. How come he's teaching the class? Like, the teacher will be on the board, explaining the class, will say, I can't understand, I raise my hands, I say, can I help? Say, yeah. And then I'll explain to the class what the teacher is trying to say. But on the final day, I'm last but one on the report card, and in my day, it's 30 in the class, I'm like 27, 28, repeated so many times. So I realized that I was always going into jobs that did not require me to write, but to speak. So marketing, sales, and everything. And before I realized I had dyslexia, sometimes I surprised myself. High-end shops. I worked for churches, I worked for Bali, I worked for Russell and Bromley, selling really high-end shoes. And at the end of the week, I'll come up top sales. And then, you're sitting in the train going home and you're thinking, I'm not supposed to be good. I'm not supposed to be good. So how come I'm topping all these guys? They can write, they can read. But look, on the sales floor, I would floor them. Then I moved from sales to car sales. It was phenomenal. So luckily when I realized that, look, it's a condition, I think then I started coming out of my shell. So I had a friend who always said, listen, you'll be very good in radio. And I'm thinking, I can't be good at radio. He says, no, I've listened to you. And I listened to the guys on radio. You have more depth, you are more articulate. And I know in my mind that I can't read and write, so radio is not my business. And he says, look, let me take you there. So I went to Rainbow Radio, and to the radio owner all the way back 2006. And I was told that's my opinion. To wait for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then I got the audience to call in to agree or disagree with what I said. And to him, I was like, no way. What are you talking about? It won't work. So I'll give it a try. So he said, okay, what I'll do then is, I will let you do your monologue and go. But as far as opening the phone call for people to agree or disagree with what you have said, it's not going to happen. So we tried it for a few weeks. And he said, no, I'm not going to let you do live. Now come and record it and go. So I recorded 2-3 shows and they didn't play. So I thought, look, I have to drive all the way from Hemel to London to do it. It's quite a trek. And so I stopped. It became like the second most listened to show on the radio. So I did it for 4 years and then I came to Ghana. So when I came to Ghana, Rainbow Radio also came to Ghana. But somehow, manager's ego did not want the program back. And I was thinking, look, this was one of our best talk shows. So why don't you want it? He says, no. I went to Joy FM, which is one of the most powerful radio stations. And lots of handwriting business and stuff like that. I like them. I like to meet people and talk to them. But I know if I write and give it to you, they won't. If I meet you, I can convince you. So I tried and I tried. I dropped like 2 letters. They bend it, I'm sure. And then eventually through Ghana, somebody who knows Kwesi Chu. So I got 5 minutes with Kwesi Chu, and that's all I did. I need 1 minute. So when I had a face-to-face with Kwesi Chu, he says, what can you bring on my radio station? He said, have you seen any empty slot? He says, no. I said, but I still have something you didn't want. So I remember he said, so what would you do on this? That's my opinion. What sort of topic would you bring? And I said, I'll put Abraham on trial. He says, for what? That's not for child abuse. The crime has no expiry date. He says, you were very frustrated by the leader now. So he called management and said, listen, give this guy a slot. He has a lot of things to vent out. And for nearly 10 years, every week, script, even though nobody knows what I've scripted, but I script my own, because I know what gibberish I've written, I can read it out. I script it and come and week in, week out, I believe I've been able to put out, thought-provoking topics. And Joy is, the high end of radio, very discerning listeners, and so you can't go there without researching. You can't just go and just talk off the cuff and go. You must go there, know your stuff before you go. And so once upon a time I did a show and then told them that, listen, I'm really, really dyslexic. I mean, I don't, even though you listen to my radio show, it's like I'm talking off the cuff. No, I'm reading script word for word. Even where I have to laugh, I indicate on the script that here you have to laugh. Where I have to shout, I write it in red. That, here you have to raise your voice. So I'm really going through a script. But listening, it just as though I'm talking to you as I'm doing now. But that's how I script my show, week in, week out. And I think it has worked. So I did a show to convince people that, listen, your wards may be going through these challenges, but believe you me, my strength is ability to see things from an angle everybody else has missed. So it could be a normal news. Normal news, and everybody would be, oh, this guy is corrupt, this guy is corrupt, this guy is corrupt. I'm the one who comes and says, look, corruption is the one that saved the world. So that would be my argument. And I would put in convincing argument for you to know that it's that corruption that actually brought some good. Just to thought-provoke and make the show exciting. So I realized, well, if that's my strength, why not? So I find myself in chieftaincy. Combining chieftaincy and radio. Most people see me and ask me, how do you combine chieftaincy and Christianity? But I find chieftaincy and media more difficult. Because as a media man, I have no shield, I have no boundary, nothing. As a chief, I am very, very protected. And so switching between the two. So to tell a little story. I mean, as a chief, under no circumstance would you put your fingers in my food. no circumstance, it would never happen. But as a media man, walking in the newsroom with tidbits, and somebody just comes and puts it, and it takes like a second, like, okay, no, it's okay here. It's okay here.
Don't execute it. Don't execute it.
It's okay here. So I find, being in the media and being chief, a very difficult switch, even though I think I've done it seamlessly. But chieftaincy and Christianity is just very easy. But that's been my journey. It's not been easy at all. But today we can sit on the stage, talk about it, and have a laugh.
Right, thank you so much. And Bodhi, I think I would like us to look at probably this from like a context. We have the African context and of course your end as well. And what has been some of the interventions you have received, and what has been experienced with dyslexia for you?
Certainly. Yep, there we go. Hello everybody, I'm Bodhi Dragonnier. Great to be here. I'm so grateful. I'm incredibly grateful to be on this amazing panel. So my experience with dyslexia was probably the best anybody could ask for. I had a dad who was dyslexic and was well aware of it and proud of it. I had a mom who was dyslexic. I had a grandmother who was a psychologist. I could not have asked for a better situation. Yeah, it was...
No prayer.
Yeah. And then to make it even better, they were able to put me in private school with private education. But the crazy thing was, I went through the school system, and it was still incredibly difficult. I had tutoring every week, and I had the best teachers in one of the best educational places in the US. And the school system was still breaking me down. But my dad saw this, and he did something that I don't think enough parents do. And this is what I think brought me from declining into a wallowing in self-pity to being here on stage proud to talk about my dyslexia. And that was something that, surprisingly enough, was in a book that he read. I know, a dyslexic reading a book, unimaginable. But this book was called The Dyslexic Advantage. It is on Audible, if anybody wants to listen to it. Because that's the only way I would ever get through it. But in this book, there's a group called the 700 Club. And these are people in the US who have made amazing names for themselves. Whether that be, successful in business, successful, with charity, successful, however you define success, they're in here. And a group of interviewers went around to interview each one of them, and they noticed two things that were very interesting. The first was that they all scored below 700 on this USA quiz called the SSATs. Terrible quiz. I dread it. It's coming up in my future, and I dread it. But it is the most mind-numbing thing that supposedly rates your intelligence, but we all know that's not true. So, in this quiz, you can score up to 2,600, which is a weird number to round to, but you can score up to 2,600. And you get about 100 points for writing your name correctly. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And all of these people, they scored below 700 on this quiz. Incredible. Everybody looking at that would assume these are people, unemployed or barely employed. But they're all these very successful people. So the interviewers obviously asked, how did you turn your life around from getting below 700 on the SSATs to becoming these incredible people? And all of them said the same thing. And this is what's really, really important. They all had a 700 Club moment, which is what it's called. And it is a very simple moment. Maybe they're drawing, maybe they're playing a sport, maybe they're building something. And somebody they don't know, a stranger that they will never see again, just walks by and says one quick thing. They say, hey, they walk off, they're gone. They will never see that person again. But that moment, that 700 club moment, was the reason that they found success in their life. Because they found something that they could use to build themselves up when they've been taught to break themselves down. So, my dad took this, and he, at the age of 7, had me create a business plan based on a little product that I created for attachable pockets. Because there's a longer story, but I had a bunch of marbles that I had to transport. But I created this little this fun little product, and he had me fill out a Harvard business plan at the age of 7.
Well, I typed it for you.
Well, you typed it for me. Good clarification, thank you. He didn't make me type that whole thing out. That would have been insane. But at the age of 7, I had a full business plan. And I widely accredit that to the reason that I'm up here with my chest puffed out and, you know, a bright future ahead. So, thank you, and thank you guys for watching.
All right. Now I'd like to, ask or probably talk about disclosure. Mr. Okay. We'll come to him.
Yes.
When do you feel comfortable enough to say, look, this is what I have, especially when you came to them? When were you comfortable saying, look, I have dyslexia?
Okay, so before I answer that, but let me finish my story. I'm a storyteller. If you ask Jesus Christ about healing somebody, he will tell you a story. I like stories. Yeah, because, so my story will answer your question. So when I met Lord Marcus, I told Lord Marcus I want to rap. And then he said, bring your O-level results. So for a week I couldn't. But then I gathered up the courage and I went to show him my results. And I had 9 in everything except ACAN, which I had 2. So he said that if rap music is for smart people. So if you are not smart, you can't rap. So I'll go and read it. And then the next 4 days you teach me alliterations, oxymoron, simile. So in the course of a year, I had read so many books, romance, tragicomedy. I had read so many books that I was now confident, and his reading had already introduced me to cities, Paris, Johannesburg. It had introduced me to cultures, diverse, languages, philosophies. He made me read everything from politics to governance to, he introduced me to a lot of things. And so when I did my, in Ghana there's something we call the Second World War. If you fail woefully, you do a second world. So when I did my Second World War a year later, I had 1 in everything. Yes. So I did my 6-4. Then that was when I realized that, okay, I wasn't ashamed to let people know that I couldn't read, I couldn't add, I couldn't write. So from that time, so this one will be in 80 or 92 or 92. So from 92, I became confident because that idea that I couldn't read and write and that it depressed me was no longer depressing me. So I became confident that even though I couldn't, it's in my past. But then I realized that Lord Marcus had used something that I was completely interested in, which was rap music, to lure out, my passion, my power, my purpose. So I would say that. But I started speaking about dyslexia openly, maybe about 3 years ago. Because when I had my son, I was looking out for it, but unfortunately, he didn't have it. He's not as creative as I
am. I was just asking about that. That as a parent, once you get to know that you have dyslexia, there comes a point in time where you're thinking,
would I pass it on? You
I
know?
think I passed something else on. I passed ADHD on to him. Yes, that we are working on now. But my son is eloquent. He writes. He is smart, just like the mother.
All right. So then I ask you. You had an experience as a result of your child having dyslexia. And I want to find out, still on the matter of disclosure, I have parents who sometimes get a diagnosis, and then after getting the report, they're not willing to share with the school. Yes. There's a fear of stigma. Probably the child not going to be anonymous. And sometimes the children as well struggle with probably being treated differently, you know, because maybe you're giving them some kind of support, maybe some additional time, probably using assistive technology, something. How did you manage that with your child? What did you tell them?
So, you know, in Canada, I'm saying that is that one ton area, so, and that was the thing I was going to say about resetting yourself. Because if you don't reset yourself, I'm a Ghanaian parent. My mother is like your mother, so it's also handed down to me. And every now and again, I need to check myself and say that I can't be a Ghanaian parent for my child because he thinks differently. He's sharper than me. He's more, he inquires more than me. He's smarter than me. So I need to reset myself. So in that discovery, I found, you know, different schools, different, listen, every app I've got it, every lesson plan I've got it, because I needed to figure out how best to teach him. I found out that to teach him, I needed to make learning fun. So we learn with everything. So I remember we learned fractions with pizza. He loves pizza. So we cut it into 8 slices, you take 1 slice, 1/8. You know, you eat half of it, is you know, he gets it. And things like when we're driving and we see signboards, we say, how fast can you read it while we're driving? So he's picking our words. I had to learn to be creative to teach him. But for me, my best moment was when I found a school, Multi-Kids Academy. And I'll tell you what, it's Multi-Kids Inclusive Academy, Annika is here. And when I found the school, I remember one of my friends telling me, ooh, it's not cool enough because it's got other kids who are not as normal as your kids. Really? And yes, and I kept saying, you know, if that is what is going to make the difference, then so be it. When we entered the school, and it gives me a lump in my throat. You know, after about a week, he said, Mommy, this is the first time I feel normal. This is my happy place. Because suddenly there are kids that are just like him, and he didn't need to be any more than he needed to be, and that was wonderful. Multi-Kids, and I'm not selling for Multi-Kids, although I think you should get kids there. So Multi-Kids don't teach with phonics, because phonics is difficult for dyslexic kids, and so they teach with sound right. So it's a totally different way of, and you know, they involve the parent, and sometimes I think, you know, they think we also signed up for the school. Because they bring you to the school, you're learning, it's too much hassle. But in all this, I met other parents, and I kept telling them, you know, it's working. I needed to be open about it and be honest about it. I still have parents who refuse to admit that their children are dyslexic. I said, well, if you don't, you're going to suffer in the future. You're suffering now, you're suffering in the future. But it's a lot of things that go into it. You really have to believe in your child, you really have to build his confidence. It's so important because they're so broken, they're such broken children. I mean, they deal with it amongst their friends, amongst, you know, other adults. A lot of my friends don't believe that dyslexia is real. They think I'm just fussy and I'm making excuses for the boy. And I have to do twice as much to let them know that it's a real thing. But you have to be creative. The other thing I also want to mention is it's important that for dyslexic kids who try everything, who try different things. My son is a competitive swimmer. And why is that important? Because for the first time he wins medals. He gets the medals, he sees the medals. He's smarter than other kids in the pool. So it really builds his confidence. He plays tennis, he wins, he's very athletic, he plays drums, he plays the piano, and he's in a Healthy Mind School. And they're very, very open in exposing the kids to everything. And one of his teachers is here, fantastic woman, Frances, fantastic. I mean, took a chance on the boy, and he said, it was an empty class. Well, they took him on, he was the only child in the class. This is during COVID, and the school was he was the only child, and they took a chance on him. He had everybody in there teaching him Frances, empty class, but the boy still sitting next to him. I believe it makes sense. But you need teachers that take a chance on these children. You need teachers that believe in the kids. If you're a teacher dismisses your child, really dismiss the teacher very quickly. Don't get confused about it, because that's where all the problems start. You need to be close to your child's teachers. You need to bribe them. But you do. Like as a parent, you have to do whatever it takes to ensure that your child is confident, your child is doing well, and you also have to remind yourself to be patient all the time. It's very difficult when you have other children, because my daughter is smart. My daughter loves reading. I mean, when you go around shopping and she's full of people. My son, getting the book is stressful. But you have to do whatever it takes to ensure that you keep them close to you, under your wings, and just push them all the time. Just keep pushing them, and they get better. I mean, I forget that he's dyslexia now. One of the proudest moments was when he came back from school and said, "I can do my homework by myself." You don't understand. It's a big deal. When he says, "I can do my homework," now I forget. I don't deal with homework issues, because he tries and he pushes himself, and he knows I'm his champion. So that helps.
Yeah, listening to such stories definitely give you some good goosebumps. And just want to ask Nana another question. Nana, so most of the time, and I think that for most of us here, that is coming from a certain area. They might not have enough to try different schools because they can't afford it. From your experience, what do you think parents and teachers from such communities can actually do to help such children?
That's a very personal question, right? Considering I come from the Little Republic of NYC.
I didn't want to say
what are you doing? It's like, what are you doing? Anyway, before I answer that, yesterday I sent this thing on broadcast in my WhatsApp, and then my English professor, because I went to university when I was 40, and I only did it because Ghanaians are very obsessed with degrees. And so no matter how eloquent you are, you needed a degree. So I said, well, let me go and do marketing. And I'm telling you, all throughout the marketing class, I thought they were like 25 years behind what the world was doing in marketing, but I had to endure. So I wrote to the school to say, listen, I cannot write in small letters. So you really have to bear with me, please. And he said, okay, fine. So when I sent her out, she's on her broadcast list. He says, Nana, do you remember you only wrote in capital letters? And he says, and they are not visible, however sensible. He says, take your time to read, and one will realize he makes sense. But brush it off, and it kills one's motivation to aspire higher. That's how I saw you during university days. So that was my... she was one of the ones who gave me a hard time. I'm sure she realized after I had left. Well, when I became chief, one of the things that I'm very passionate about education, I think because of the stigma of what I went through. And I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. So I realized that in the urban areas, averagely by 5, they start putting words together. And then in the rural areas, 7, 9 before they start putting words together. And Because I was thinking, why should the geographical location of a school determine what age somebody reads or not? But then I didn't know how, but that's the good thing. Once you dream, sometimes it happens. You just have to have the dream. So I got a call from a company called Jollyphonics. And they said, oh, no, we've seen you on Head You championing education and all that, so we could help. So yeah, come along. So they came, and miraculously, I mean, the children in Edumasa from KG could put two sounds together and start. I thought it was normal, until Anis Hafa, who's the educationist, came to train my teachers on how to prepare notes. Then when they came back to the palace for assessment, he told me how impressed he was that he'd gone to a rural area and in KG, people could start putting sounds together and putting words together. The parents are more of a challenge than the children when you go to the rural areas. Those who need the great help are not the children, but the parents. So I'm very close to the school. Even though it's a public school, I look at it and treat it as though it's a private school. And anytime we have a meeting with the teachers, the frustration is that parents never come to the school to check out what's happening, even though it's just a walking distance. I always tell the teachers that if it was an orphanage, who would you have expected to come and see the kids? And what would you have done? So do that. Because after all, you've been posted here to teach, and teach you must. And as a teacher, in a few years' time, you should walk into banks, hospitals, and institutions, and you meet people who you impacted, who then pay you back. So if you're sitting here waiting for parents who never come, you would have wasted your time.
Yes.
So in the rural areas, it's twofold. Either there's a major adult education program to see the essence of a school, or the teachers should really pick the children as though they are theirs. I know you've gone to an orphanage and they don't have any, mother, father coming from anywhere and give them your all. I mean, I do that in my jurisdiction, and I do it very, very well. I do unannounced visit. I treat the school as though it's mine. Yeah, I treat it as though it was mine. I mean, I would refuse certain teachers to even teach in the school. Yes, because they showed some funny, behavior towards their children. I said, no, I won't allow it. And if you're a chief and you haven't concerned yourself with the school, you may miss it. With those of us in the rural areas will realize that when they get to the adolescent age, it's a major hassle for the teachers. Really, I mean, they are at war. When they leave primary school, the drop from primary school to JSS is so significant. And the relationship between the teachers and the students is like really poisonous. And so if you're not there, always pushing, the teachers just, it's only going to be 3 years, you're going to be out. I'll wait for the next lot. So on that level, maybe those who are the education should come in and help us in terms of what psychologists the teachers should know to help, with the dealing with the adolescents. But other than that, I think it's about my pay grade. It's really about my pay grade. I'm playing my part in my small village. But maybe all chiefs and traditional rulers should also play their part in their village, because in Edumasa you treat everybody as equal. I remember I walked in the class and the teachers had brought those who were clever in front because they were not wasting his time, and those who were not so clever at the back. And I said, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Those who need more help should be in front, and then those who don't need help should be in the back. And so we changed it. I said, look, you must spend time. It doesn't care if it's 100 years. Why did you come here? To teach. Why are you in a hurry to go? You're here to teach. So I just urge, those in authority within localities to be very, very, very close to the schools. Then again, there are people who may be in authority who are not dyslexic, so don't know that there are children in the class that are struggling. And I always tell this story that I had a little farm, and my peppers never grew. I mean, corn, okra, everything. This is a true story, you know. And anytime I grew peppers, they just didn't grow. And then I realized the soil wasn't good for the pepper. I mean, everything else was fine. It's just that the peppers were not good for the soil. So there are children in the class who the teaching methods don't suit. Yeah, it doesn't suit. It doesn't mean they are, you know. And I don't, you know, well, I don't think there's no such thing as a useless. Honestly, from where I come from till now, and ironically, all the schools that kicked me out, today, if there's any function, they will write to me, they will call me, and you just come and pass through, want everybody to see you are a product. I said, really? I said, really? So there's no such thing as a useless child. And success has many friends. So you just have to be successful and you get your friends. So the parent adult education should be brought back.
Yes!
So that they realize the need for the child to be in school. Yeah. Because they are more of a problem than the children.
Amen.
Really, yeah. So I think that's my take.
Oh!
Right, so we'll have the last question from Bodhi. Take that and probably take a few questions later on during the program. So Bodhi, this last question. What would you say to another dyslexic student that is?
Excellent. No pressure on finishing off this whole segment, so thank you for that. I know we're coming short on time, so I'll keep it short and sweet. I don't have any magical tips to suddenly get better at taking notes. If you have them, let me know, because I need them. I'm still in school. Notes, reading, no. But the thing that as I alluded to earlier, the thing that has, I think brought me great success is finding those things that I am really good at or I really enjoy. My mom has a phrase, she says, find the activities where you lose time. The kind of thing where you, maybe you're a great artist and you will go up to your room and you start drawing and you look up and it feels like 15 minutes went by, but you look at the clock and it's midnight. Like, those are the best things. And inevitably, that is going to be what brings you the most success, is what you love. So that's my suggestion. Find something you love and really, without giving up school. I'm not saying anything like that. But when you have free time, those are the best things to, spend your time on and enjoy. So, yeah.
Let me just add one for parents watching. The frustration is that you have good days and bad days, and you have really bad days. So that's when the frustration is that, oh, hold on, Monday you were good at it. How come Tuesday you can do it? Now, it took me a long time to learn how to write my name. Long time. And then I became chief and my name changed. And I'm telling you, sometimes I can get to, when I'm coming, and everybody's like, oh yeah, Nana is coming. Nana says, Nana, please, can you fill this form?
Oh, sir.
And so I write Nana and answer. I can never, so I write my name, cancel it. And they're thinking, why, is he a fraud? How can you write my name and cancel it? Yeah, you have good days and bad days. And so I can imagine a parent that we've gone through a word on Monday, Tuesday you were able to spell it, and then by Friday you're telling me you can't spell it. So there are good days and there are bad days, so bear with us. Yeah, so when I approach you and I don't write my name, trust me, maybe I'm having a really, really bad day.
All right, thank you so much for also listening. At this point, what I'll say is we'll take some questions later on during the program. And if you have them, please just write them down. We'll get to definitely take them. So thank you so much. And thank you so much as well for our panelists and
that every child is a genius waiting to be discovered. And NASA scientists came up with a test to really test the divergent thinking and creativity of people. Now, they did this internally, but then they put together a group of 5- and 4-year-olds, about 1,600 of them. Then they did this IQ test to test their creativity and thinking.
and specifically their creative genius. And 98% of the children were assessed to be creatively genius. Now by age 10, they found them again. By then they had started school, so they were in grade school. And out of the 98%, only 30% were now geniuses. At age 15, the number dropped down to 12%. And by the time they were 20 into adulthood, they were only 2%. So it is said that we're all born geniuses, but the school system dumps us down. Now, there's a difference between the school system and the education system. And today I'm so happy to have a school leader and an expert in education, Dr. Fatma. Then I have an excellent educator. So there's a teacher, there's a school leader. And then I have a policy maker who will tell us all the ins and outs of why curriculum is even created in the first place and what we need to have our children learning. And then I have the person that will speak for the government, tell us all about why the Ghana education system exists and the purpose and the relevance of what they are doing in their service. So I will moderate this by starting with, who do I start with? Okay, so I will start with, I think, Ida. I read from your profile that in 6 months you can turn a dyslexic person from not being, oh, it's not you? Okay, in 12 months. For that. Okay, in 12 months, whatever it is, how are you able to transform a dyslexic person from not being able to read into becoming what they're supposed to be? Well, tell us just your story. Okay. Never mind what I asked.
I think that actually stems from a parent that I helped her son. I still work with him, but it's not as intensive as we started earlier. The child was aged 11 by then. The mom noticed certain signs before COVID, and it was getting serious. During the COVID period, no school. The child comes back from school, there's no homework and all that. And she realized there was a problem, but she didn't know what to do. Talked to lots of people, then an assessment was done. But even before the assessment, I got to meet her, we spoke, and I told her to go ahead with the assessment. She did. Afterwards, we started working after the assessment. And, well, a lot of things came into play. And fortunately, the boy started reading. He started reading, he started picking up certain things that initially he wasn't able to do. And I don't know how that got out, but the mom met Rosalind and shared a story with her, and I think that's how come we also get to learn the story.
So what did you do specifically? Nobody was there but you and the kid. So tell us, share some insights, because it will interest you to know that during COVID, I was hosting a show on GH1 television. I was teaching children on TV, and a lot of parents became teachers out of that experience because they would see what you're doing. That's why I really want you to go in. What did you do? Any word of encouragement you said to the boy that truly transformed his way of thinking about himself? Because it starts right there.
There were lots of things that we did. We didn't stick to one approach, and that's one thing that I've learned with every child who has a special need. One size doesn't fit all. We make sure whoever you're teaching, whoever you're tutoring, whatever you're doing, use an approach that will best suit the child. Change, be malleable. You can't just decide that, okay, I use this particular strategy for this child, so then it would work on this person or it would work on that person. There are some things that have been noted to be very good, like using a multisensory approach. It's very good. Yet we bear in mind that every single child is also different. If you're using a multisensory approach and then this person is a visual learner, does it mean that I would stick to visual, everything being visual? That's not possible. Make sure you tailor your things to suit the child's needs. Aside that, you should be the child's cheerleader. Celebrate whatever milestone the child is able to achieve, make sure you celebrate it. So one thing I always do with my kids is that whenever in a month, whatever thing you've been able to achieve, we have a party. I call it a party, and the child also knows it to be a party. And we celebrate whatever thing we've been able to do in that day, because if we don't, and we'll keep piling it up till it gets to a point where, oh, I can't even see what the child did. The child doesn't recognize that I've been able to do this, I've been able to do that. In a whole day or in a whole month, the child has been able to read just a page of a book. Let's say a book for a year 2 or a year 3. Meanwhile, the child may be in year 7 or GHS 2 or wherever. The slightest thing the child does, appreciate it, encourage the child, cheer the child on through whatever ways and means. There are times when we don't even use books. I don't use a book. There are times we just watch videos. There are times we'll be playing with things on the floor. Whatever I need to do to be able to get the child out, look for the interest that the child has, because every single individual has something unique that they like or they will do at any point in time. Look for that particular thing in that child and then make sure that you tailor your things to suit that child's needs. That's what I'm saying.
That's awesome. And I'd like to share something. Education comes from the Latin word which means to bring out, and that's what you're doing so beautifully. So thank you. Dr. Fatima, so you're the director of Albanian School. How different is the culture of your school in acknowledging these gifted children, and how are you, together with your team, able to make sure that no child is left behind?
Actually, this is the key thing, because I've heard a lot of people talking about, teachers, teacher training on the roads, best results in this, award in this, award, because that's what we value. So our culture values certain things and has no value for kids who are very different. So this is a critical thing. As long as a culture, as a community, we don't learn to value every single member. In our school, we talk about greatness in everyone. So that's our value number 1. Everybody has greatness in them, and it's up to us to kind of identify what it is and how we bring it out. So that's the values and the culture that we build within our community, and then what systems and programs stems out of that to support every student that we have. So for example, for us, as I was talking about, it's personalized learning. That's number 1 for us. We believe that every student needs to have a personalized approach to learning. The second one is well-being. Because guess what? These students who learn differently usually feel different, and it affects their mental health and their psychology a lot. So you really need to provide that, well-being, mental health support systems that we have. And the third thing that we do is staff development, which is our third priority, because it needs a lot of training to get to the point where teachers are able to recognize different profiles of students when they're preparing. So also students who are dyslexic, if the only way you're preparing is a copied paper and you have to read that copy, that paper and solve whatever I'm giving you, then you have not allowed the students to access learning. So what are different approaches you have to supporting students to access the learning? And then how do you provide them with different opportunities to express their learning? Because if the only way they will express it is through writing, then you have disqualifying a group of our students. And then if the only way I'm going to assess you is in this SAT or in this MAP test or is this, then I'm going to tell you this only way is also disqualifying and discrediting a group of your students. So how many diverse ways do you allow students to access learning, to express their learning, and to assess their learning? So these are critical things that we have.
That's awesome. And I'll just stay with you briefly. How do you rope parents into this whole difference that you're making in your school? Because sometimes trying so hard to be innovative in the way you approach teaching and learning, some parents are so used to, let me see the report card, is it an A or B? And even if it's an A, is it 95 or 20? So how do you engage your parents in making sure they understand?
So that's actually from admission, because the moment parents come to us and that's like, he's an A star and we're expecting this, we always say that this is not a school for you. This is not a fit for you. So it's really about, I go back, if your culture is this, Every person in your community, every person entering into your community has to hold this culture dearly and fight for it. I've had people saying that, all right, we'll get you our SEN child, but we'll keep the other kids in other schools because they're academically strong. For me, I tell them, you're not a fit to my school. Because if you're fit to my school, you believe that this is a school for every child. And every child has a space in the school. So this is it. So you have to be very clear about who you are and what you're doing. And you need to tell them, do you believe this is something you will fight for? This is something you'll be, you'll work with us. And I can tell you, throughout the years, we did lose those parents who said that this is not for us. We're going to look. And we gained the parents who are saying, okay, this is really what we stand for, and this is where we want to be. So this is very critical in defining who you are, your values, and who are the parents that will stand by you. For example, we used to have autistic students who, when we first started, would bite another child or have a tantrum and it would affect. And a lot of parents is like, okay, but we're afraid, we can't. And I say that that's a journey we're going to have to make together. So it's not only about dyslexia, it's about a lot of other learning needs and cognitive abilities also. So in our school, we deal with the whole spectrum, from highly gifted to the other ones who have personalized programs. They're in year 7, but they're working at a grade 1 or 2 program.
That's awesome. It's always a delight to hear passionate educators speak. All right, let's move on to Prof. Infant. So, as a policy maker or director, I love that you direct policy decision, especially in inclusive education. What are some of the challenges you think you're facing in your line of work, and how can we or our stakeholders become part of what you do?
You don't sit in the office and think about developing a policy which will work for you. You have to be thinking of how the policy is going to influence the thinking and actions of the citizens, because the policy is for everyone. And so your first issue is how everyone will get on board and accept the policy. You begin to sit back and reflect and see the different types of individuals you have in the community and how they will see or their perspectives about the policy. So, assuming we are talking about bringing every child to school, getting every child there, the first question that you have to ask is, do we all appreciate schooling in the first place? Do we all want our children to go to school? Or some of us think our girl child should be married early in order for us to get some cash to maintain the family? Is the boy not going to help me on the farm so that we get money to service the family? Anyway, I have 5 children. Do I sponsor free to go to school and use 2 on the farm? Do I have the means as a single parent to educate this child, or must I give him to somebody else? And so there are so many issues that confront the guy who is putting the document together. And in your attempt to do it, you have to solicit the views of others. And so you begin to engage with people we call stakeholders. Tell them of what you think should be the case, and let them also tell you what they think should be the case or solution to the case or the problem. And when you collate all these views together, then you are going to have a policy that will be applicable or workable for all. But it is not as simple as that. It is not, because the differences are so many that sometimes as you work towards meeting the needs of a set of differences, you leave out others. And then it comes to a point you begin to ask yourself, is it even possible to actually, if you are thinking about teachers, is it possible to have teachers who can manage the various different differences that we have in humanities? Do we even know the various differences? We know just a bit. And so that bit is what we work on. And therefore, for some time past, if you take the 2015 policy for instance, what was invoked, the trend was to look at certain found and pronounced disabilities and work towards that. Between 2015 and 2022, a lot has gone by. Knowledge has expanded. And so many things have come out, emerged, that we have left behind, or we did leave behind. And therefore, you are beginning to ask, how do we then revise and develop a policy that will address the concerns of our citizens, including myself, such that any emerging issue, we will find innovative and creative ways of meeting it. And one of them is what we are doing here. Previously, nobody talked about dyslexia. Previously, nobody spoke about autism, except when you went to Joru or New Horizon, those things. But now, people are talking about differences and emerging issues that all of us are now becoming so aware that when you are putting the policy together, you begin to listen to views, you read, and sometimes even social media. And I tell you what, between Saturday, yesterday, and today, what I got from social media has turned my thinking around in terms of reviewing the policy. This time around, I got practical experiences and practical stories coming out of giftedness. One in the Volta region, a 3-year-old boy, and the story, which I have already captured and I'm going to use for the review when we visit the zonal areas. These are things that we look at when you are thinking about developing a policy for the nation. And this, let me pause here and then wait for more questions so that we can share together what we are attempting to do for our nation.
Thank you very much, Prof. So the World Bank tells us that globally there's a learning crisis. So many are in school, but few are learning. And when you go into schools, teachers are sweating and teaching. When the kids are disengaged, they are not interested. The question is, exist. What is it that you're doing in the education space? But more importantly, how relevant is your work in the space of inclusion, learning difficulties, and specifically for children living with dyslexia? How is the curriculum, the new curriculum, I've read it page to page, and I didn't really see, for instance, in instruction, how are you teaching dyslexic children? And then assessment, if we are all writing tests. What do you do with the ones that can write like Nana when he was a kid? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Grateful for being here. The number of questions that you put together, it is being unfair to me. If you tell me that I'm dyslexic, in that short attention span.
Okay, so now the question in two schools, private, public, everyone.
Great teacher. Yes, thank you very much. I am sitting here with my professor, And that alone is dwarfing me, like a dyslexic being in the classroom, a regular classroom. Ochami could bear me out. I'm sitting with Professor. Yes. Ghana Education Service, just standing in for education, that everybody needs to be educated. And we need just the pivot that all would revolve around it. So it's just standing there and then drawing all the people together to be educated. So Ghana Education Service is implementing the policies of the succeeding governments. Everything they bring up, we have to review it, and the stakeholders are there, the consultants are there, they look into it, and we see the implementation of the programs of the government and the state. We zoom it down to special education division, because Ghana Education is for all, but then when we come to special education division, for many years, GES has operated, or they have had their implementation at the level where we have just few of these difficulties attended to. Those with blindness, those with deafness, those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So these are the three major categories that we have seen over the years. The other ones are in there as parts, but they weren't giving any focus at all. Then in 2018, that the issues about dyslexia and the broader spectrum learning disabilities came in. So when we look at even our focus here with what we're talking about, we are talking about dyslexia, and some of the contributions that came along with that is a reading disability, all that. But that alone is the umbrella term we use, the dyslexia, but we all know that there are other forms. So one of the questions has to do with assessment. Yes, so I'll come there. It means that it's not only going to center on the reading. If we couch it that way, then we would be drawing the curtain on just one side and losing focus. So we will broaden it to bring in dyscalculia and dysorthographia, dyspraxia, and all the dysconstellations. So yeah, when GES decided to bring in and zoom in onto the focus of learning disabilities, we decided that we're going to give training to the teachers in the districts so that they would also be able to team up with the special education coordinators to support the learners in school. UNICEF also has come in with programs, and Prof has been part. We have been on several programs where we are championing the cause of how to support learners with specific learning difficulties to be able to read and write, to be able to stream through school. But looking at the teacher-learner ratio that we have, it becomes a bit difficult to now center on teaching reading or teaching children with dyslexia and the other forms of disabilities. So we decided to look at the general support that we can give as a training to the teachers, that they can also now transfer that to the learners. First, we looked at creating awareness. In all the districts that we visit, we need the teachers to create awareness. And then the next level is advocacy, that the teachers will stand in for the kids and be able to support them to speak for themselves. That eventually, I know my nephew has been doing that with the support from his dad. He has been echoing his that stature to be able to having his self-image revamped. He could speak in front of the crowd. So these are the advocacies that we are looking at. Then we come to the next level, we look at the support strategies. When we come to basic teaching skills, that one, UDL is doing a lot. Professor Hayford has been part of championing the cause of UDL, and that is enshrined also in the new curriculum. Yeah. So the basic support that we give training to the teachers to give is how to revamp the self-image of those struggling with dyslexia and the other forms of learning disabilities. then finding a way to support them use their strength. And our panelists, the first panelists, they spoke so well about that. Fortunately for our panelists, I realized that we have had some touch with the foreign world internationally. But then the question was posed, going down, and Nana came in with what he's been doing to support the community, which also, if we pick it from where he has started, I think we'll be able to do so much. So that has been the pattern that GES is going in to support the people, the students, through the teachers by giving them set training to be able to, at least one, self-image is crucial. And then two, we look at their areas of strength. And the third area is social and emotional learning, which we all know that is the key to success. So we see a lot of people with academic credentials going up, and then something little brings them down because socially, emotionally, they don't have the wherewithal to withstand that. So social, emotional training and learning is crucial. Of course, we have a lot of people who have not been to school before, yet they have become so successful, and several names could be mentioned. Touching on the new curriculum, you read it page to page, word to word. You didn't find dyslexia in it because we were not writing the subjects as tying in with the disabilities per their names. But when you look at the new curriculum, the facet of it all is character building more than academics.
What does that mean? I think that's the question we're all asking.
Let me just say something first. Looking at I was able to take a look at it in a way. What I noticed was that in a way, my background, well, let me just say this. Dr. Fatma was my boss, so then I have known her in RIN.
Where are you from?
Yes.
We used to work together.
We used to work together, so then my basis or my background and knowing the system, as you said, is mainly with...
She's a teacher. No, she said the same only.
I thought he did it. He read the profile. So, and adding something to it, what I noticed was that mainly it has to do with what approach do we teachers use in handling our students. There are several approaches in teaching. There are the drills that we were taught, and those are the things that we've known. Those are the things that we've gotten used to. Those are the things that are very comfortable. So then we always come to class and it's a drill. Every single time we handle our kids, it's a drill. But then our kids are not the same as we were when we were being taught. They are different. They are very intelligent. And trust me, your slightest mistake that you would make, you could be sitting in a class and a child would correct you. Yes, they have to say it. They need to say it because we learn from each other and education never ends.
Exactly.
You, the teacher, need to improve. The child also needs to improve. So constantly we need to work towards gaining or achieving the best. And in that, what they call the communicative learning approach is what I have seen that lots of people now use. But then how well are we using it in our individual classrooms or in our individual teaching and learning? How well do we put in all the different strategies that we could put in to help or assist our students, especially those ones who have learning difficulties? Come to talk about dyslexia. If a child is not able to remember the things or a child is not able to put down things, why don't you allow the child to just audio record? It's an option. A child can have access to a scribe in an examination. Does the child need to sit and write? Definitely not. There are several things that we could do to assist a child. So then why don't we find out what works best for this particular student of mine?
Exactly.
How can I assist this particular student of mine? What should I change as a teacher to be able to adapt to my students' needs? That is what is needed, not what we would do to finish things up.
And take the canes out of the class.
I want
Take the cane out of the class.
That's at the teacher's level, but what we work with right now is the UDL that you mentioned, the Universal Design for Learning. I don't know if anybody have heard about UDL. And it's that, how to design systems and schools who are designed to meet the needs of everybody in the school. The same way architects design buildings to be accessed by everybody. An escalator, an elevator. So it's about designing. And guess what? As educators, I know a lot of us don't believe it, but we are actually designers. We are, and as leaders, school leaders, as policymakers, we are designers. We design learning spaces. We design learning experiences. And it takes a lot, and in design, there's something called design thinking. It's a constant loop. We keep going and making it better. And
appreciate that we're teaching and learning everybody for life and not for test. I see how children struggle. Okay, I'm from this curriculum, I'm moving to the GES curriculum, and all of a sudden they move from being the best student to the worst performing student because of differences in how teaching is done and learning is done. We need to be more mindful of identifying the intelligence in a person more than the knowledge that we have. Because some people are very knowledgeable, they will tell you everything you need to know, but intelligence level is 0. Now, Howard Gardner will tell you that there are 8 multiple intelligences. Some are musically intelligent, like Mr. OK. Some are word smart. They can speak to people and you will marvel. Some are self-smart, like Nana. He can speak to you and you will marvel. Some are just good with nature. Some are good with their body, like Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi, and Kudus. Okay, all right. So everybody has their highest level, and then you have the others that follow. So the fact that you're musically intelligent and the school system is not designed for you will make others think that you are not good enough. And that's why we talk so much about the culture we need to create in our societies, in our families, in our schools. Parents, if you catch your children calling each other names, please be quick to point that out. That he's a fantastic swimmer and you are not. So that they identify that everybody is intelligent in their own levels.
What about teachers? What are you doing to help teachers who may be dyslexic understand that they are dyslexic and also to help their students as well? And I just wanted to say that I am a dyslexic 23-year-old, and I wanted to point that it's important to allow the students to understand that they are normal. I keep hearing people say that smart, that is intelligent, and that is dyslexic. I think everyone is smart, intelligent, including if you are dyslexic. So I think it's important that we change our language and how we point out terminology.
Yeah. In our school, we stopped talking about special education needs. And my team is here, we talk about personalized learning support. We personalize learning because every child is special. And that SEN, the word SEN, honestly, I feel has to be changed. It cannot, it's special. No, you're not special. You're just like everybody else. You just learn, we all, and each one of us learn differently, and we have our different passions and our different purpose, and it's just about it, but language is critical, and this has to change. And so the first step we did was scratch out SEN, and we talk about personalized learning support. That's what we do. It gives personalized learning support.
So bad, we needed to feel that they were special. Now is the time to move on. STEM. We're not into twigs anymore. It's STEAMed. Science, technology, engineering, art. Please do not leave our art people out there. Okay? A lot of dyslexic people are artists. They are creative. It is amazing to see what they do. Then you have your mathematicians, and then you have your designers. STEAMed. We need to get our young people STEAMed up. STEM, we're not into twigs, my dear. Forget the twigs. Get them STEAMed up. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you all for the presentation. And then we are talking about learning disabilities. So what is the plan for those with hearing impairments? Because the topic is concentrating more on the hearing people. What about the deaf, those with hearing impairment? What are you doing about that? Thank you.
For today and for this occasion, the issue at stake is how to meet the needs of those who are dyslexic or have dyslexia. But in the context of the inclusive education policy, arrangements are being made for all types of needs. And so within the policy, we are saying diverse learning needs or diversity. We are starting from gender, going into the gifted and talented, going into those who are gifted and talented but have certain types of disabilities. We call them the twice talented or gifted, or 2E. Then we are talking about the disabilities and the marginalized. And so for the policy context, all those things that we've mentioned and we know, we hear, we see, have been catered for. And let me assure you, for instance, sign language interpreting and any other service for the deaf is catered for in the policy. Now, I need to add that all along, we seem to be leaving parents out of the equation. Please, for those who succeeded one way or the other, even if it was negative, it was the parent. Now, next parent expected him to achieve, and he wasn't. And so they were pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. Somebody came into the life of Ochiami. That is the parent. And that is the young man's story and the father. So parents are crucial. And in the revised policy, what we are telling the government to do for the Ghanaians is this. Assessment of special needs. Let me use the term because, yes, because of the occasion. You see, there are times you talk about language and you confuse issues. If you don't talk about the problem specifically, you won't know how to address them. You may be addressing deafness with dyslexia if you don't mention them. So sometimes in the course of professionalism, we do mention. What I'm saying is this. We are asking the government through the National Council on Persons with Disabilities that when it comes to assessment of children, it should be at no cost to the parent.
I'm dyslexic, I'm an educator, and I also worked for GES 20 odd years ago. So I understand what the teacher training systems, etc. looks like here in Ghana. The point I wish to make is we can talk about what the ideal should be. And many of us sitting here are very lucky to work in private schools. My daughter is also dyslexic. I've had her assessed this week. It's an incredibly expensive process. But if we're looking at GES, somebody said earlier there was about 3 million students that you're looking after. So if we work on that situation, 600,000 of them are dyslexic. So 600,000 kids are in our schools today that most of their teachers have never even heard of dyslexia. We can talk about what the ideal situation would be. But if you look at New York City, there is a free training course, Dyslexia by Design, and they have made every teacher in New York do that course. It's free. You can just access it online. Why can't we start encouraging, as an interim way of making dyslexia more, let's make it more aware for our teachers in GES by making them go on that course. We can do a shorter one, it's a whole day course, but you can put it down into little chunks. Why can't we have an incest day? So it's not talking about what the ideal would be and what the long-term plan is, but can we put in some sort of awareness training that could be done so simply in the next 12 months? Can GES say that they will look into it for us?
Very good, very good. Is because of a lack of information thrown out there. We have in GES, among the teachers and in schools, what we call professional learning community, where they're supposed to meet weekly, come together and share some of the issues about dyslexia and some of the things that are not quite prominent in the education system to help update their knowledge and information. And that PLC is supposed to be done, and they will have resource persons and some of the officers who go in to support the teachers to do that. So because we don't bring this into the media domain, it looks as if GES is not doing anything much in that area. But a lot is being done.
Bring it in the media domain. Bring it in the
Yes, GES staff or GES together, we can only speak through the PRO and his or her office. Now you cannot go out by yourself to champion any information, because if you bring on any misinformation, that will discredit the body. So we have to channel it through that. So going forward, we will have to think of innovative ways to do that. So as we go to the districts to do the trainings, again the PLC also takes charge of these ones, and teachers are getting abreast with information with regards to dyslexia and the other forms of disabilities. Then even when it comes to the area of those with deafness, we currently have sign language dictionary for the entire public. Because if we confine sign language and the teaching of those with deafness to only those who can teach that and only those who are deaf, it means that we're not going to getting anywhere. So this time, the sign language dictionary is available that the public can access, and that also means that all of us are going to learn the sign language. Then those of us who are prominent in the area of dyslexia and other learning difficulties will be able to support them as well. Not only the teachers in the classroom, but all of us will understand the sign language and be able to support. So broadly, I think it's going on and it will catch up. Thank you.
Question. It works? Can you hear me?
You can hear me. My voice is pretty. Oh, now it's on. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you to all the panels. You've done amazing work today, educating us on dyslexia for some folks who do not understand the struggles for some of our children in school today. My name is Dr. Kisi, and I specialize more in inclusive education. Now, we've heard so much about disability and its forms, the different forms, and I think one of the things that we need to understand is that Ghana is, how many years are we now independent? 65, 67? 70 soon. Some of us are coming from countries that are 150 something. And those are the folks that have created and brought us the policies of inclusive education and special ed. So it's done perfectly in that context, right? And now we have Prof. Aford, GES, trying to put this together, contextualize it, bring in the cultural aspect of it, to make sure that it works in our context. But we also forget that the policies that we're using to talk about special education, for the lack of a better word for today, as Professor Aford said, I will also use it for now. When we do special education, or we're supporting a child in class, there's one-on-one teacher that supports it. I'm educated from Canada. So when we have a child with special needs in a classroom, we have the main teacher And then if a child has dyslexia, or if a child is autistic or has ADHD, they have their support teachers as well. So when you see their data that says that their special education is working perfectly, that's exactly why it's working perfectly. But we have schools that hold 60 children, one teacher, and every child, as we've heard today, has different learning style. I am a visual learner. I didn't know this until maybe recently. But knowing this allowed me to be who I am. But how do you, also, we don't have access to early childhood here that is free education. So a lot of the children that are already coming into your classrooms already have their learning disability, or they've lacked something in quotes. And we teachers have to support them to make sure that every assessment that is being done, they meet the writing and the learning and the reading before they are passed on. And if they're not passed on, or they cannot do the Q and core that doctors mentioned, then you fail. So who is failing who? We are the one failing the children. So GES, I know you feel like you've been attacked today, but as Dr. Fatima mentioned today, it's a system thing. It's unfortunate that this is a system that we are all educated in, right? But disability in our context is demonized. It has been demonized. There's a lot of myth attached to disability that we have to unlearn and unpack. So we as educators have to also educate the parents. And this is where the adult education comes in. If we don't educate the parents that disability is not an inability, or disability is not because of a curse. Because as Africans or as Ghanaians, this is how we know disability. So that's why when you tell, as parents tell their, as teachers tell parents that, oh, your child is delayed, or your child is not, oh, it's not true. Then we take it to the pastor, and then we pray. In Jesus' name.
What is the educational system, and what language is it based on? English. And what are the languages we speak in our homes? So imagine this child, and we're not talking a crowd, we're talking rural, all these areas. They come to school at the age of 6, 7 without any early years education. And now they're going to start learning in a new language that's not even spoken at home. I need to know, and then now I'm going to discover if I have dyslexia or another learning difficulty. So there's a lot, and probably the issue of policy. I think we will, either we have to change policies to change our main language of learning, or else our students are not going to be able to access university, usually all in English. So if we are teaching in a language in our schools, in our official schools, which is not our mother tongue, something has to be done in early years education. Something critical has to be done, and that's where a lot of intervention will happen. And if we start early, then we don't have kids dropping out of primary school, I believe.
Education started in our country basically to solve a particular challenge as at that time. Our indigenous forefathers and our friends that visited us as at that time had a gap that they have to use education to solve, purposely to enhance communication. And for that matter, certain activities were very focal being demonstrated in our classrooms, or to enhance communication. That is not to say that education has not supported us, Ghanaians very well. It has supported us. But if you look at the motive of kind of education that we have gone through over the years, it is tailored towards communication gap. Based on that, in 1951, a certain assessment model which has really affected us was adopted. That is pen and paper test. That is pen and paper test. So if you are in school and you do all whatever you are supposed to do, and you cannot write to meet that standard, then you are out of the system. So when you go to Kantamanto, when you go to the street, you meet a lot of talent that they were supposed to be given the chance. But because there's that kind of, let's say, restriction, they end up being in the streets. It's very important for you to know that where we are now, we are gradually shifting from pen and paper tests to that of competency-based and employability skills kind of education, where career development is the central discussion point. And on that note, I know very well that a lot of stakeholders, being the curriculum that has been introduced, dialogue that is ongoing, the kind of assessment that we are currently, let's say, putting in place is geared towards a system whereby you will not be that if you cannot read, if you cannot write, you are meaningless in our system. As we speak now, there's ongoing national standardized tests. The key information on that test is to gather data for us to know. In fact, some of us advocated that we don't want WAEC. So whether WAEC is actually, let's say, now incorporating oral tests or they are doing something under the carpet, the fact is that they have not really supported education in Ghana. And some of us advocated that this kind of answer should be taken away from WAEC, should be given to a different entity, and now it is happening. What is happening is that those of you who your children have been assessed, is that the people come to your school, it's not going to be oral, let's say, a written text, but rather oral as it has been discussed here, so that the children would then be assessed. We gather data right from the onset. During the COVID time, something happened. Because we don't have data for these children, children are supposed to go to classroom and write exam. But now, things are now on their rightful path. So what I will say is that to the private schools, yes, I've been listening a lot. Private schools, some of them are saying we don't admit children in our schools, we don't do these things here. Yes. Some of these drastic, decisions shouldn't be in the policy direction. Because we understand that policy-wise, yes, almost of the transformation agenda starts from policy. But I believe that we have to move from policy direction to that of regulations, where sanctions are attached. Then we can be boldly confident to say that we are gradually or we are transforming education from that kind of pen and paper test to meet each and everyone's aspiration. Thank you very much for your attention. God bless you.
In collaboration with the private school associations, GES was in collaboration with them, and I'm happy the director is here. The first thing we need to do, the reason why they will not allow the child to do the exam orally is because they don't have that information. They don't have that know-how. They have not accepted it. So we first need to give them orientation. Working in collaboration with them, they can invite us, we together with them can go to that particular school and give them that orientation. There are a number of courses also and programs that they have been running, the private school associations. That also we can holistically join hands with them to bring some of these issues on board so that all the private schools will be aware that they should allow the children to start doing their exam by oral responses. From the school level, it will come to the district level and to the headquarters, they will send it to WAEC, as long as WAEC remains in there. So it starts with orientation so that they become aware of what is going on. And I believe they will allow the children to do the oral test.
Okay, so I'd like to, schools are on the left, private schools are on the right. You don't seem to have any synergy whatsoever running through. So there are things that are being done in the public schools, which if we had access to as private school leaders would have been beneficial. But it's as though you do things for public school only, like public school teachers, public school students, and then private schools are literally left to our own devices to do whatever we want. And that's why that teacher doesn't feel the need to, because it looks as though even if you have a policy against that, it doesn't affect them. And if it does, they don't know. And there's no policy document or certificate in our schools that's saying you cannot be discriminative, or your school should be an inclusive school. You need to please take a critical look at that.
That has been taken. NC, National Council for Persons with Disabilities. Yes, they brought together stakeholders, I think in 2019-2020, for the amendment of the Disability Act. So we have a representation there, a lot of information in there, a lot of articles in there to change the phase of order we're talking about. So there's been a lot being done on that until it is passed. Some of these issues we cannot address it holistically. But very soon, there's been a stakeholder engagement on that very soon. It's been in Parliament as well. So very soon, I think when it comes out and we have the document, we'll see a lot of changes, the synergy between the private and the public schools.
Of African Dyslexia Organization, which organization actually started only 3 years ago. She has been a victim of dyslexia. She indicated that one of the objectives for organizing this important stakeholder meeting is to promote inclusivity. And I believe that looking at the way all the various stakeholders spoke, I mean, we are really getting inclusive. Our main speaker for the day, Mr. Dean Bragonia, who found noticeability. Forgive me if I don't mention it well. He himself actually was diagnosed when he was in the 10th grade with a condition, dyslexia. But the difference was that he had a good intervention. But that good intervention she had did not still take away the negative self-worth that she felt. She summarized that to be able to overcome this, there are 3 things that should be done: early detection, early intervention. But the third one, which is often forgotten, is social and emotional learning support. And this is where we are lacking in most of our institutions. Now we think that, oh, yes, the child has been diagnosed, is getting the teaching that she needs, but the social and emotional learning support that is necessary is often being left out. For me, one thing came home, like everything, every bad situation has a good side. And he gave us very interesting statistics. Dyslexic tend to be entrepreneurs, engineers, architects, great artists, and so on and so forth. So what are we doing? What systems are we putting in place in order to harness all things? For example, 40% of self-made millionaires, for example, are dyslexic. So the potential is really there. The potential is there. The Deputy Minister of Education, the Deputy Minister of Education also assured us that they are working hard to put systems in place to ensure that every child are exposed to an integrated and inclusive education system. So much work is being done at the education level, at the education ministry level, and we are hoping that sooner or later something good will come up. During the panel discussions, which were very interactive, you can all bear me out, very interactive panel discussions. So much came out. I will just share a few. It was said that some of the insights that were shared, that there is nothing like a useless child. For me, that was a very strong message. There is nothing like a useless child. adult education should be brought back. Parents, and for that matter also, some of the teachers are usually the problems. Because this happens because they don't have the knowledge. You can be a parent of a dyslexic and you will not know what is really wrong with your child. The teacher also may not also know. One thing that has really come out today is that the people who should be armed with knowledge to help these children themselves don't have the knowledge. For example, the behavior of the teacher that has been spoken about. For me, it's better one thing, that the knowledge is not there. So there were some take-home messages and some next steps that have been discussed, which I would like to share quickly. The first thing is that Ghana Education Service should use the media and bring all the effort that they're making to the front, so that the public will know, teachers will know, parents will know, everybody will know that these are the new policies. There is also the need to strengthen assessment, because people may suspect that yes, this child has this condition and so on and so forth. But if assessment is not really strong, a place maybe that should not be too expensive, that the child can be sent to have the formal assessment. If that is not available and working well, then we may run into trouble. It also came out that more education is needed both for parents, for teachers, for general public, concerning all special needs, all children with special needs. The emphasis here is not only on dyslexia. Everybody, every student, all situations of special needs, we need really more education. There should be greater advocacy on transforming the educational system to ensure that no child is left behind. That is another take-home message. Ghana Education Service should have learning resource centers, so that if some particular activity is not in one center, students can go to the other one in order to benefit from that particular one. Finally, there is the need to have a different learning station. Even in the same school, we should have different learning stations. So this is the engineering learning station, architectural learning stations, and so on and so forth. Situation where some of these activities are being completely separated, like the TVET system now, which is now completely separated from the formal system. All these should be taken a look at again and probably preached. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just but a few of the key points. So much has been discussed, and I believe that our records, they have taken more records than what I've summarized, but these are the ones that come up immediately for mention on my own behalf, and more importantly on behalf of the organizers of the program. I just want to thank you so much for coming for this important program. I have learned personally, and I believe that all of you here have learned something new that you take home. Thank you so much.